Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for part 2, episode 2 of a 138-part series titled Alone with Bukowski. As we travel poem by poem through, you get so alone at times that it just makes sense by the master poet himself, Charles Bukowski, a collection of poems. And in this series, what we aim to do is we aim to compare and contrast poems by Bukowski to poems by other writers in order that we may more fully develop an appreciation for Charles Bukowski. And today is an episode that is going to prove predominantly cathartic for me because I have spent the better part of 3 years, nearly 4 years now, lamenting the existence of Billy Collins here through the internet. I can't stand Billy Collins, and I hope to convert you to my church in today's episode. I apologize. In Charles Bukowski fashion, have had a few beverages. I think it's only fitting to do this type of video in this fashion. So we will be looking at 2 poems today, one by Bukowski and one by Billy Collins. The one from Bukowski titled Red Mercedes, and that from Billy Collins being titled Boy Shooting at a Statue. I got it from page 62 of Aimless Love, a collection from Billy Collins. Red Mercedes reads as such, and it takes a fair bit of channeling, a little bit of character work, so I hope that I pull this off. Naturally, we are all caught in down moods. It's a matter of chemical imbalance and an existence which, at times, seems to forbid any real chance of happiness. I was in a down mood when this rich pig, along with his blank inamorata in his red Mercedes, cut in front of me at racetrack parking. It clicked inside of me in a flash. I'm going to pull that fucker out of his car and kick his ass. I followed him into valet parking, parked behind him, and jumped from my car, ran up to his door and yanked at it. It was locked. The windows were up. I rapped on the window on his side. "Open up, I'm gonna bust your ass." He just sat there looking straight ahead, as did his woman. Likewise, they wouldn't look at me. He was 30 years younger, but I knew I could take him. He was soft and pampered. I beat on the window with my fist. "Come out. Come on out, shithead, or I'm going to start breaking glass." He gave a small nod to his woman. I saw her reach into the glove compartment, open it, and slip him the .32. I saw him hold it down low and snap off the safety. I walked towards the clubhouse. It looked like a damn good card that day. All I had to do was be there. And now, that was Red Mercedes by Charles Bukowski. And now, Boy Shooting at a Statue by William Collins. Boy shooting at a statue. It was late afternoon, the beginning of winter, a light snow, and I was the only one in the small park to witness the lone boy running in circles around the base of a bronze statue. I could not read the carved name of the statesman who loomed over, one hand on his cold hip. But as the boy ran, head down, he would point a finger at the statue and pull an imaginary trigger, imitating the sounds of rapid gunfire. Evening thickened. The mercury sank, but the boy kept running in the circle of his footprints in the snow, shooting blindly into the air. History will never find a way to end, I thought, as I left the park by the north gate and walked slowly home, returning to the station of my desk, where the sheets of paper I wrote on were like pieces of glass through which I could see hundreds of dark birds circling in the sky below. I can't stand Billy Collins. I hope that rendition of his poem was a good example. Why? But why are we looking at these two poems together, you might ask? We're looking in both of these poems at an older man observing a younger man with a gun. And it is very easy in both of these cases to imagine the poem as an actual incident. That is to say that the speaker in this poem may very well be the poet, and the poet may very well have lived this experience. It needn't be so, but it might be. And because it might be, that gives us an in to compare the two along with the subject matter. Bukowski starts by talking about depression, but he refuses to linger there. Naturally, we are all caught in down moods. It's a matter of chemical imbalance and an existence in which at times seems to forbid any real chance at happiness. I was in a down mood when this rich pig, we go right into it. Collins, on the other hand, our speaker in this poem, Bukowski refuses to linger on depression. Collins begins with lingering in the park. That's all he's doing. Our speaker in the Collins poem is stationary, sitting there, observing, witnessing. He was the only one there to witness. In fact, I think this poem by Collins would be much better without the speaker present at all. Just show the boy, show what he's doing. Don't worry about the fact that the speaker is the only one there in late afternoon and the snow to witness it and then leaves to go back to his desk. There's no reason for that. It's pointless. It's useless. It's worthless in the context of the poem. Maybe there is some profundity there to which I am ignorant. I can't figure it out. Even if there is, I don't know what the speaker has to do with it. The speaker need not be in this poem. The speaker in Bukowski's poem learns the lesson. But we've no reason to believe that this is the first time or the last time that speaker will learn this very same lesson. The speaker in the Collins poem, it doesn't seem to matter whether it is the first time, whether it is the last time, whether it's anywhere in between. We've no reason to know or give a damn if he's learned whatever he's learning from that young boy pretending to shoot at the statesman. Now, what does it mean? What does the Collins poem mean? The simple answer surely would be that Collins' generation inherited the world put forth by the statesman whose statue is not named, and the young boy pretending to shoot at it has nothing with which to combat his inevitable future, the future which has been ransacked by Collins' generation who is free to return home to his cozy desk and his writing. But I think you're having to put too much on the reader there. I think you're having to rely too much on those things which the reader might bring to the poem. Stephen King in Danse Macabre, don't know where it's at. He talks about the 3 levels of horror. And the basest level of horror is the gore level, the jump scare level of horror. It's the entertainment factor. It's the thing that you can get from the horror movie if you are not willing to delve any deeper than that in the project. You just watch and you see the blood and guts. It's an entertainment factor. Poetry should have that entertainment factor. Bukowski's gives you something to look at, in the very least, while all of the other things that are going on, that are roiling under the surface, are going on and roiling under the surface. Billy Collins is not so kind. Billy Collins' poetry reads like this. You're expected to be there. He is so profound. I don't buy it. In Bukowski, our speaker, because of that entertainment factor, our speaker begins the poem with a small diversion about a large thing, brings us into the poem, a large thing such as depression, something from which everyone's going to suffer at some point, brings us into the poem, and then begins with motion. There is motion and there is commotion. Bukowski getting cut off. I was in a down mood when this rich pig, along with his blank inamorata in his red Mercedes, cut in front of me at racetrack parking. Collins does not do that for you. Collins was the only one in the small park. Enter, to witness the lone boy. So no one's alone. Are you alone in the park? No. The lone boy, perhaps he is alone in his status as a boy. He's not the only one in the park. Neither are you. You're both there. Even the alone in Collins, the loneliness, the lonerdom, it is not real. It is not true. It is not authentic. It is simply a product of each of these characters believing they are alone. In Bukowski's poem, the speaker proves he is alone. He does not have a woman, his woman, to dig in the glove compartment and hand him his 32. He's alone. And at the end of the poem, he remains alone. He starts the poem desperately alone in the throes of depression and ends the poem lightheartedly walking into the racetrack. It was a good day. All I had to do was be there. Bukowski's younger man, the younger man in red Mercedes, is vital, is virile. He has a woman with him. He has a loaded gun ready to go. He's cut off this older man. Zip. Metaphorically, this is evidently Bukowski's character, Bukowski's speaker, being thwarted by a younger and more virile man. After which, he gives up, but he gives up to go do something fairly aggressive. Collins, younger man, is a boy unable to shoot bullets. He is not virile. It is imaginary. Bukowski's gun, the safety is clicked off, and it is now ready for some a-killin' to go on. Go ahead, break the glass, buddy. I got this 32 here, and there happens to be a bullet in the chamber with your name on it. That is ready and raring to go in the Bukowski poem. It is a loaded gun. It need not go off. That tension is built by its very appearance, by that clicking sound of the safety going off. That distinct sound that says, okay, buddy, let's have at it. That is where the high point of Bukowski's poem is. What is the high point of the Collins poem, if not this line? And pull an imaginary trigger, imitating the sounds of rapid gunfire. So hands off, so distant, so cold, so far, far, far away. There is a quote often attributed to Stephen King, often attributed to Ernest Hemingway, often attributed to Charles Dickens, depending on which Pinterest page you happen to find it. I think it is a Hemingway quote, and I think it occurs in On Writing. I think that Stephen King quotes Hemingway in On Writing, and that is from which Stephen King gets the credit for this quote. And I imagine Dickens probably said something somewhere like it, somewhere along the line. And it is, writing is easy. You just sit down at the typewriter and open up a vein. You see the blood draining from Bukowski. His character pulls an about face in this face of inevitable loss. Bukowski's character is not going to survive a gunshot. So you see that bravado bleed from his veins. Collins, not so. It's not necessary. Not so much. Not so fast. It's a fake gun. It's fake gunfire. And he decides to go home. That's it. That's all. That's where we end. This is a man who was poet laureate from 2001 to 2003. So very distant. So very distant. Bukowski, hold on. Yeah, so the gun in Collins is imaginary. Bukowski is at a racetrack. He's there to place bets. He's there to watch animals struggle. I believe it's dog racing, maybe horse racing. I don't know. I don't know why in my mind it's a dog racing track. Collins is at a park with an unnamed statesman who, in typical Collins fashion, isn't real either. That's not the real statesman. It's an imaginary statesman. It is that imaginary ancient statesman who has dissolved himself of any responsibility for my generation, and much less the generation of this young man, who is so angry at past generations, he is imagining himself shooting them down. Far out, man. It's just so distant. It's cold. There is nothing... Inevitability. Inevitability is an important thing in poetry. It was inevitable. The moment Bukowski's speaker got out of his car and approached the other car, that son of a bitch who cut him off, it was inevitable that that confrontation would come to some head. What is inevitable in the Collins piece? Bukowski deals very well with inevitability, with expression, very well with anticipation. Collins, not so much. Collins is... Look, with Bukowski, at the end of the poem, confrontation be damned. He's going to those races. He was planning on beating that fella's ass and then going to the races. Instead, he almost got killed, so he went to the races. In Collins, what forces us to go home? Nothing. What necessitates that part of the poem into existence? Nothing. Everything is vital in the Bukowski poem. The moment this kicks off with depression, it has to end in a good day. The moment it kicks off with someone cutting him off, it has to end in that confrontation. The moment that gun appears, it has to be used or not, but we have to feel the after effects either way. In Collins, nothing is inevitable. It just sort of happens. And by the way, in the Collins poem, he goes home to work that's already been done. He goes home to look at words he's already written. It doesn't even necessitate him into work. I think a good deal of what there is to be taken from this pairing of poetry is that the appeal, much of the appeal in Bukowski's poetry, is a lot in the speaker making judgments and making judgment calls, and the reader making judgments based on that. Bukowski does not expect you to be on his side. Hell, Bukowski, you get the feeling a lot of times, he doesn't even want you on his side. He's daring you to be on his side. Go ahead, side with me. We're both the bastards in the end. He does not want you on his side. He just needs you along for the ride. He's willing to entertain you. He's willing to lower himself, to stoop so low as to let you laugh at his poetry. Collins, on the other hand, all the Collins I've read, he takes his reader for granted, and his writing comes across as entitled to your intellectual effort. He does not want to lull you to sleep and work with your dream space. He does not want to offer you something and charismatically get you to follow. He does not want to brainwash you into feeling any certain way. He's entitled to your intellectual effort. Bukowski, and the true brilliance of Bukowski, is that he's entertaining even if you don't want to go deep. And that makes literature accessible. It's not very quotable oftentimes, but many people who have read Bukowski have a favorite Bukowski. And the moment you do, all you have to do is be opened up to the fact that maybe there's some poetry, there's some literature buried deep down inside there. And you're convinced. The moment you love one of Bukowski's poems and someone shows you something you never quite saw, you've grown as a reader. With Collins, I don't know that he can prove those training grounds. I've never met anyone who did not. I've met one person who likes Collins, and they have a degree in English. The guy was the goddamn poet laureate of the United States from 2001 to 2003. It's sad. Anyway, that's all I have for this episode of Alone with Bukowski. Next time on Alone with Bukowski, part 3 of a 138-part series, we will be looking at Retired from You Get So Alone at Times that it just makes sense. I hope to have you back for that episode. If you like this, be sure to hit that like button because it really helps me out here on the channel. If you'd like to help me grow, you can always hit the subscribe button, and you can always share this video with someone who likes Bukowski, who hates Collins, or maybe who likes Collins and you just want to ruin their day.